Somebody better praise him in here, because I came to talk about woman today, not just any woman, but a woman who has learned the sacred power of solitude. I'm talking about a woman who has walked through the valley with no one but God as her company. A woman who has turned off the noise of the world so she could hear the whisper of heaven. A woman who ain't afraid to sit alone, because when she sits alone, she sits with strength. Oh yes, she's not lonely, baby. She's learning. She's not hiding, she's healing. She's not broken, she's building. And every minute she spends in silence, she's getting ready to shake the world with her power. Because I came to tell somebody today that a woman who spends time alone with herself and her God, that woman becomes UNSTOPABALE. Solitude is not the same as isolation, though many confuse the two. Isolation is when life pushes you into loneliness, but solitude is when you choose to step away so that you can step within. When a woman embraces solitude, she is not running from the world. She is returning to herself. She is entering a sacred space where she can lay down every mask, every expectation, and every burden that the world has placed on her shoulders. In solitude, she finally breathes without needing permission. She listens, not to the chaos outside, but to the truth that's been buried deep inside. This is not a place of weakness. It is a place of spiritual and emotional training. In solitude, she learns how to hear her own thoughts, confront her own patterns, and connect with her own purpose. Without the noise of opinions, she becomes clear. Without the pressure to perform, she becomes real. In that quiet space, she is not shrinking. She is sharpening. She is not withdrawing. She is preparing for the next level. Her time alone is her time to heal, to reflect, to strengthen what was once broken, and to ignite what has been dormant. The woman who makes time for solitude becomes a woman who knows how to lead herself. She no longer looks to others for direction because she's developed inner wisdom. She no longer waits for validation because she knows her value. And when the storms of life come, because they always will, she's not easily shaken. Why? Because she's been in the still place. She's learned how to be anchored when everything around her is moving. She's trained in stillness, and stillness builds strength. There's a difference between a woman who's been constantly surrounded and a woman who's been spiritually prepared. The crowd can keep you busy, but solitude makes you ready. The woman who embraces solitude understands that silence can be sacred, space can be powerful, and distance can be divine. She steps away, not to hide, but to build. She walks back into the world not needing the light to shine on her, because now she carries it. When a woman chooses to spend time alone with God, something deep begins to stir within her. In the quiet, when the distractions fall away and the world stops pulling at her from every direction, she begins to hear a voice that's stronger than doubt, more powerful than fear, and more steady than any storm. It is in this sacred solitude that she meets the one who truly knows her. Not the version others see, not the image she's forced to maintain, but the real her, the raw, the vulnerable, the searching soul. And it is there In that holy encounter, that purpose begins to rise. In the presence of God, she no longer needs to perform, to compare, or to compete. She's not asking for validation. She's receiving revelation. God begins to speak to her destiny, calling out of her things she never knew were inside. She begins to see herself through the eyes of the world, but through the eyes of her Creator, chosen, appointed, and assigned. Her scars become stories, her pain becomes power, and her silence becomes sacred space for transformation. In that place of divine intimacy, confidence is birthed, not the kind that comes from applause or attention, but the kind that's rooted in identity. She doesn't need to be loud to be powerful. She just needs to be clear. And in that clarity, she understands that purpose is not found in the crowd, but in the call. She realizes that what God deposits in her during that time alone will sustain her in public battles and elevate her in moments of influence. She emerges from that solitude not empty, but full of vision, full of direction, full of fire, because when a woman has been alone with God, she walks differently. She doesn't panic when rejected. She doesn't shrink when challenged, and she doesn't crumble when misunderstood. She's been fortified in the quiet and refined in the presence of purpose. And from that place, she no longer waits to be chosen. She walks as one who has already been called. Stillness is not an activity. It is intentional focus. It is in stillness that a woman begins to gather her strength, to center her soul, and to reset her vision in a world that constantly demands her movement, her performance, and her noise. Choosing stillness becomes an act of power. It's in the still moments when she's not rushing, not reacting, not proving, that she discovers the depth of her own spirit. The stillness teaches her what the chaos never could. It trains her to respond instead of react, to discern instead of assume, and to lead instead of follow. In stillness, she begins to sense what truly matters. Her mind, no longer racing, starts to declutter. She lets go of the lies she's picked up, the expectations she's carried, and the heaviness she's been hiding. She learns how to breathe again, deep, steady, holy breaths that root her in the present and remind her who she is. Strength isn't always forged in fire. It's often built in the quiet. It's in the still place that she hears the whispers of purpose, the gentle direction of God, and the affirmations that speak louder than applause. A still woman becomes a dangerous woman, not because she's aggressive, but because she's clear. She's not rushing to prove her worth because she knows it. She's not chasing every opportunity because she understands alignment over hustle. She doesn't move at the pace of pressure. She moves at the rhythm of peace. And peace is what gives her the stamina to last, to endure, and to build what's meant to last. The woman who practices stillness becomes unshakable. Her calm unnerves the enemy. Her focus disarms distraction. Her spirit is anchored not in what she has, but in who she is. Stillness doesn't mean she's doing nothing. It means she's doing the inner work that prepares her for everything. She becomes more intentional with her words, more discerning with her time, more purposeful in her actions. She's no longer driven by impulse, but led by insight. And in that clarity, she becomes efficient, wise, and powerful beyond measure. She steps into every room, not trying to take up space, but already owning her place, because stillness has taught her how to stand firm, how to walk steady, and how to wait without wavering. When a woman stops chasing approval, everything about her life begins to shift. She no longer shapes herself to fit into places that were never meant for her. She no longer silences her voice just to be accepted, and she no longer bends her truth to be palatable. The need for applause, for affirmation, for someone else to say she's enough begins to lose its grip, because the moment she stops chasing approval, she starts walking in authority, not the kind given by people, but the kind birthed by purpose. Her confidence no longer depends on compliments. It is anchored in conviction. Approval is a moving target. It changes with opinions, with trends, with emotions. One day they love you, the next day they forget you. But authority is constant. It comes from within. It comes from knowing who you are, what you carry, and why you're here. When a woman taps into that authority, she stops waiting for permission. She doesn't ask, am I allowed? She declares, I am assigned. She doesn't shrink herself to make others comfortable, because her presence is not a problem. It's a calling. There's power in a woman who no longer needs to be seen to feel valuable. She doesn't chase attention. She commands respect. She's not worried about being liked, because she's focused on being aligned. And when you're aligned, you don't have to force anything. Doors open, favor flows, and the right people recognize your value without you performing for it. Authority makes her bold, but it also makes her wise. She knows when to speak and when to be silent. She knows which battles to fight and which to walk past. Her energy is no longer drained by trying to impress. It's directed toward purpose. Approval is exhausting, but authority is empowering. And when a woman finally lays down the weight of needing everyone to understand her, to approve of her, to validate her choices, she becomes free, free to move how God leads, free to build what she was called to build, free to be fully, unapologetically herself. She no longer waits for a seat at the table. She brings her own. And in doing so, she shifts the atmosphere around her. She carries influence, not because she demanded it, but because she embodies it. Her silence is not weakness, it's strategy. The world often misunderstands a quiet woman, assuming that silence means submission, that stillness means passivity, and that calm means she has nothing to say. But a wise woman knows that not everything requires a reaction. Not every battle needs her voice, and not every storm deserves her energy. She understands that silence is not about being invisible. It's about being intentional. In her silence, she is listening, discerning, calculating, preparing. She is studying the room, reading the patterns, watching what others miss. Her silence is not empty. It's full of power, waiting for the right moment. There is strength in a woman who can sit in a room and not feel the need to prove her presence. She doesn't compete for attention, because her purpose speaks louder than her voice ever could. She's not trying to be loud. She's focused on being effective. While others are speaking just to be heard, she is observing to understand. While others are reacting to pressure, she is preserving her peace. She knows that her voice has weight, and she doesn't waste it on noise. She saves it for purpose. When she speaks, it's not for validation, it's for impact. Silence gives her the space to strategize. It's where her ideas are born. Her strength is renewed and her spirit is sharpened. She may be quiet, but her mind is loud with vision. She may not always share her plans, but that doesn't mean she doesn't have any. Her growth happens in the dark. Her healing happens in the quiet. And her breakthrough is being prepared while no one is watching, because she knows the most powerful moves are often made in silence. She doesn't need to announce her every step. She lets her results speak for her. In a world addicted to noise,